welcome to your deep dive. You shared Seed Time and Harvest, a mystical view of the scriptures with us.
Oh, interesting.
And I have to say, this 1956 book,
Yep.
it's not your typical interpretation of the Bible.
Right.
It really dives into this mystical side, focusing on how you can actually apply its wisdom to your life.
Yeah, what's intriguing is how the author encourages you to move beyond just the literal words of the Bible.
Yeah. Okay.
It's about finding deeper meaning and using it to understand yourself and tap into your own potential.
Okay, so right off the bat, the book throws out this idea that man is not interlocked with his environment.
Oh, wow.
What do you make of that?
It's a bold statement suggesting that we're not just products of our circumstances,
Yeah.
The author is setting the stage for this idea that we have a lot more control over our lives than we might think.
Right.
And they introduce these four mighty ones within each person and this metaphor of shedding your skin like a serpent.
So it seems like the author is hinting at this power we have to shape our own lives. And the book dives into the idea that the Bible can actually be a guide to harnessing that power, specifically through imagination.
Exactly. The author points to the phrase, "What things soever you desire," emphasizing that to achieve anything you need to consciously and deliberately use your imagination.
Okay.
But it's not just about daydreaming.
Right.
It has to be done in a very specific way in alignment with what they call the laws of the mind.
So it's not just about wishing for something,
Yeah.
but really picturing it, feeling it.
Pride. The book uses this great story about a woman who desperately wanted to travel to Samoa.
Okay.
She wasn't just hoping for a trip. She was vividly imagining herself already there,
Wow.
feeling the warm sand between her toes, smelling the tropical flowers, hearing the ocean waves.
And this actually led to her getting to Samoa.
It did.
Wow.
A series of unexpected events unfolded,
Okay.
including inheriting money from a distant relative, which allowed her to take that trip.
Wow.
The author presents this as an example of how powerfully focused imagination can influence reality.
It makes you wonder, what if we're unknowingly limiting ourselves by not tapping into this power of imagination? What dreams could we be bringing to life if we really embraced this concept?
That's the question the author wants you to ask yourself.
Yeah.
They're laying the groundwork for understanding that you have a role to play in creating your own experiences. It's not just about passively accepting what life throws your way.
Right, and this brings us to the four mighty ones. I'm really curious to unpack this idea because it seems like a key to understanding how we can actively shape our lives.
It is. Think of it like this.
Okay.
Each of us has an inner producer, author, director, and actor.
Okay.
And they all work together to create our experiences. It's like putting on a play.
So let's break that down. Who is the producer in this play of our lives?
The producer is the part of you that chooses the theme or the desire you want to manifest.
Okay.
It's the dreamer, the visionary.
And what about the author?
The author takes that desire and crafts it into a detailed script. Think about sitting down and actually writing out every detail of what you want. The sights, sounds, feelings, everything.
Right.
The more vivid the script, the more real it becomes in your mind.
Okay, so we've got the vision and the detailed plan. What role does the director play?
The director is crucial because they ensure the actor stays true to the script.
Okay.
They provide guidance, make adjustments, and keep things moving in the right direction.
So the director is like the voice of discipline, making sure we don't get sidetracked or give up on the vision.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we have the actor,
Okay.
which is you living out the script in the physical world, taking action, making choices aligned with that vision.
This analogy is so powerful because it shows us that we're not just reacting to life, we're actually creating it.
Yes.
We have these different aspects of ourselves working together to bring our desires into reality. It's like we're all running our own internal production companies.
Exactly. And this framework helps us understand where we might be getting stuck. Maybe we're great producers full of ideas and dreams,
Right.
but we struggle to write the detailed script. Or maybe we're fantastic authors but terrible directors, meaning we get lost in the planning but never take action.
It makes you think, which of these roles do you naturally excel at and which ones might need a little more attention?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a key to unlocking even more potential. Now let's talk about this idea of shedding your skin like a serpent. It sounds a bit intense.
It's a powerful image, right?
Yeah.
But it's really about letting go of anything that's holding you back.
Okay.
Think about old beliefs, limiting habits, fears, anything that's no longer serving you.
It's almost like outgrowing a shell, like a crab. You have to
Yeah.
shed the old to make room for the new.
Exactly. And this isn't a one-time event. It's a continuous process of growth and transformation.
Mm-hmm.
The author uses the serpent as a metaphor because they shed their skin as they grow,
Right.
making space for a new, bigger, stronger version of themselves.
It's a reminder that change is inevitable, and sometimes we need to actively let go of what's no longer serving us in order to make space for something better. I'm curious, what do you think might be some things that people cling to even when they know it's time to let go?
That's a great question,
Yeah.
and it's very personal. It could be a belief about ourselves that's limiting us,
Okay.
like I'm not good enough, or
Yeah.
I'll never be able to do that. It could be a relationship that's become toxic, but we're afraid to walk away. Or it could even be a comfortable routine that's preventing us from pursuing our true passions.
It sounds like identifying these skins we need to shed is a crucial step in this journey of personal growth and transformation that the author is outlining.
Absolutely. And this leads us to the concept of faith,
Okay.
which is central to the author's message. But they present a very specific, active definition of faith that goes beyond simply believing.
So it's not just about having blind faith or hoping for the best.
Not at all. The author describes faith as going beyond the evidence of your senses and holding fast to what they call the unapparent truth.
So what does that mean?
It's about believing in something even when you can't see or feel it yet.
That sounds almost paradoxical. How can you believe in something that's unapparent?
That's where the power of imagination comes back into play.
Okay.
The author argues that by consistently imagining your desired outcome, you're essentially aligning your inner world with that reality,
Okay.
even if the outer world hasn't caught up yet.
It's like planting a seed and having faith that it will grow into a plant.
Yeah.
Even though you can't see the plant yet,
Right.
you're trusting in the process.
Exactly.
Right.
And to illustrate this concept of active faith, the book tells the story of a woman whose nephew was born with a birthmark on his face.
Oh.
The doctor said it was permanent, but she refused to accept that.
She had faith that he could be healed.
Yes, and she acted on that faith.
Wow.
She persistently visualized her nephew with perfectly clear skin, completely ignoring the physical evidence of the birthmark.
So she ignored what she could see with her own eyes.
She did, and what's remarkable is that over time the birthmark completely vanished.
Wow. So it seems like this story is meant to show us that faith, combined with the power of imagination, can create real change.
Right. The author emphasizes that faith isn't passive. It's an active process of aligning your inner world with the outcome you desire,
Yeah.
regardless of what your senses might be telling you in the present moment.
It's a powerful concept, and it makes you wonder what seemingly impossible things we could achieve if we truly embrace this level of faith.
That's the invitation the author is extending, to step outside the limitations of our current perceptions and tap into a deeper level of belief in ourselves and the power of the unseen forces at work.
This is already giving me a lot to think about, but
Yeah.
there's so much more to dive into with seed time and harvest. The author also delves into this fascinating mystical interpretation of water and blood,
Yeah.
which I'm really curious to explore further.
Absolutely. Those metaphors offer a profound understanding of how knowledge and action interact to create transformation. We'll definitely unpack that in more detail as we continue our deep dive.
This idea of water and blood really stood out to me. I'm curious to hear how the author ties those elements into this whole framework of personal transformation.
It's an interesting connection, isn't it?
Mhm.
The author uses water to represent knowledge and blood to represent action.
Okay.
And they argue that both are essential for real change to occur.
So it's not enough to just have the knowledge, the water, so to speak.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You can have all the books in the world about gardening,
Right.
but if you never actually plant a seed, you'll never grow anything. Knowledge without action is just potential energy waiting to be released.
Okay, I see that. But couldn't action without knowledge be just as problematic? You could be taking all sorts of steps,
Right.
but if they're not guided by understanding,
Right.
you might not end up where you want to be.
You're absolutely right. It's like setting off on a journey without a map.
Okay.
You might be moving, but are you moving in the right direction? The blood provides the momentum, the drive, but the water, the knowledge, ensures that you're headed towards your intended destination.
So it's about finding that balance,
Yeah.
that synergy between knowing and doing.
Precisely. And the author offers this compelling story to illustrate this point.
Okay.
It's about a teacher who had a student who was constantly causing problems in class,
Oh.
being disruptive and disrespectful.
Yeah.
The teacher was feeling very frustrated and didn't know how to help this student.
So she turned to the principles of the book.
She did. Instead of focusing on the student's negative behavior,
Yeah.
she decided to use her imagination and focus on the positive qualities she knew were hidden beneath the surface.
Okay.
She began to picture the student as a well-behaved, respectful child, consistently holding that image in her mind.
And that actually had an effect on the student's behavior.
It did.
Hmm.
The teacher noticed a significant shift in the student's attitude and actions.
Wow.
The author presents this as an example of the blood. The teacher's consistent action of visualizing the student in a positive light,
Right.
combining with the water, her understanding of the student's inherent goodness to create a powerful transformation.
It's almost like she was watering the seeds of potential within that student, helping them to grow.
That's a great way to put it. And this story really highlights how we can use our own water and blood to not only transform ourselves, but also have a positive impact on the people around us.
It makes you think about all the situations where we might be focusing on the problems
Right.
instead of seeing the potential for positive change.
Exactly. What if we approach those challenges with a different mindset,
Yeah.
focusing on the unapparent truth of what's possible,
Right.
and then took action aligned with that vision?
This book really encourages a shift in perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's about moving beyond the limitations of what we see on the surface and tapping into this deeper understanding of how we can shape our reality.
Absolutely. And that leads us to another fascinating concept presented in the book, Jacob's ladder.
Oh, right. We talked about that briefly in the beginning about it being a symbolic ladder, not a literal one.
Exactly. The author uses Jacob's ladder as a way to illustrate different levels of consciousness.
Okay.
Imagine climbing a ladder,
Right.
and with each rung you reach, you gain a wider perspective, a deeper understanding of yourself and the world.
So where you are on this ladder determines how you experience life.
That's the idea.
Mm.
Are you at a level characterized by fear, limitation, and negativity?
Right.
Or have you climbed to a level where you're experiencing more love, abundance, and joy?
Oh.
The book doesn't lay out specific levels,
Right.
but it invites you to reflect on your own journey,
Okay.
to consider what beliefs and attitudes are shaping your current perspective.
It makes me think of that saying, change your thoughts, change your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's about recognizing that where we are mentally and emotionally directly impacts our experiences.
Precisely. And the author challenges you to ask yourself, what would it take to climb higher on this ladder? What beliefs might you need to shed? What actions could you take to shift your perspective and experience more freedom and fulfillment?
So it's not about passively waiting for things to change.
Right.
It's about actively taking steps to elevate our consciousness, our understanding of ourselves, and our place in the world.
Exactly. And as we elevate our consciousness, we start to tap into the creative power of our thoughts and words,
Right.
which is what the author refers to as the law of the word.
Okay, this is where it starts to get really interesting to me.
Mm.
I know we often hear about the power of positive thinking,
Yeah,
but the law of the word seems to go even deeper than that.
it does. The idea here is that your thoughts and words are not just fleeting things.
Right.
They have real creative power. They shape your reality.
Yeah.
And the author uses this story about a businessman to drive home this point.
Okay.
On the surface, this businessman was very successful,
Okay.
but he was constantly worried about losing his wealth. He would talk about potential financial downturns and constantly express fear about scarcity.
So even though he was successful, his thoughts and words were focused on the negative.
Exactly. And what happened was that he actually ended up experiencing significant financial losses. The author presents this as an example of how the businessman was unknowingly sabotaging his own success by focusing on lack instead of abundance. His words, even though spoken out of fear, were shaping his reality.
Wow. It really highlights how much attention we need to pay to our inner dialogue.
Yeah.
If we're constantly feeding ourselves negative thoughts and fears,
Right.
we're essentially creating a blueprint for those things to manifest in our lives.
Exactly. And the opposite is also true. If we can shift our inner dialogue to focus on abundance, possibility, and gratitude,
Right.
we're much more likely to experience those things in our outer world.
So it's about becoming aware of the stories we're telling ourselves
Yes.
and making a conscious effort to rewrite those stories in a way that supports our desired outcomes.
That's a great way to put it. It's about recognizing the power of our words and thoughts
Mhm.
and using them to create a reality that aligns with our deepest desires and aspirations.
This law of the word reminds me of that concept of shedding our skin. It's like we need to shed those old limiting beliefs
Yeah.
and replace them with more positive and empowering internal script.
I love that connection. It really highlights how these different concepts presented in the book are all interconnected, all working together to support this journey of personal transformation.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from the power of imagination in the Four Mighty Ones to shedding our skin, embracing faith, understanding the interplay of water and blood, exploring Jacob's ladder,
Right.
and now delving into the law of the word. It's a lot to take in, but it all feels so interconnected, like pieces of a puzzle fitting together to reveal a bigger picture.
It's a beautiful tapestry of wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's clear that the author intended for these concepts to not just be read, but to be actively engaged with, contemplated, and ultimately put into practice.
So it's not just about accumulating knowledge.
Right,
It's about using that knowledge to create a more fulfilling and empowered life.
Exactly. And that leads us to the author's final challenge, which is perhaps the most provocative and empowering question of all.
So what is it? What is this final challenge that the author leaves us with?
The author asks, if you could rewrite the script of your life, what changes would you make?
Wow, that's a powerful question. It really makes you pause and reflect, doesn't it?
Does. It challenges you to think about what truly matters to you,
Right.
what kind of life you want to create, and what steps you need to take to bring that vision into reality.
It's like the author saying, okay, you've learned all these principles, you've explored these concepts.
Right.
Now it's time to put them into action.
Exactly. It's an invitation to become the conscious author of your own life story, to move beyond simply reacting to circumstances and start actively shaping your experiences.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into seed time and harvest, what are some key takeaways that you think will be particularly helpful for our listener as they reflect on this question of rewriting their life script?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that we have a lot more power than we often realize. We're not just passive recipients of fate.
Right.
We have the ability to influence our reality through our thoughts, beliefs, and actions.
And the book provides this really practical framework for understanding how to harness that power, right? We have the Four Mighty Ones working within us.
Yeah.
We have this ability to shed old skins and embrace new perspectives, and we can tap into the power of imagination and faith to bring our desires into being.
Right. And it's all about aligning our inner world with our desired outcomes.
Yeah.
The more we can cultivate a mindset of abundance, possibility, and belief,
Right.
the more we'll see those things reflected in our outer world.
And even if things aren't perfect right now, there's always the possibility for change.
Yes.
We can always choose to rewrite our script, to make different choices, to shift our perspective, and to create a new story for ourselves.
Exactly. It's never too late to start creating the life you truly desire.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. It's really challenged me to think about my own life script and to consider what changes I might want to make.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I hope our listeners feeling similarly inspired to step into their role as the author of their own life story.
This book, Seed Time and Harvest, is a powerful reminder that we're all capable of creating extraordinary lives. It's just a matter of tapping into the power that already exists within us.
Beautifully said. And remember, the journey of transformation is ongoing. There will be times when you need to shed old skins, reevaluate your script,
Right.
and perhaps even rewrite entire chapters. But the power to do so always resides within you.
So as you go about your day, consider what seeds you're planting with your thoughts, words, and actions. Remember, what you focus on grows. What will you choose to cultivate in your life's garden?